a very good question, Captain. All of our training is directed to a single end, success in battle. And that applies all the way from our instruction of the individual soldier to the battle training of our field armies.
Yes, sir.
And that means that each of our officers and non-commissioned officers must not only be leaders, but also teachers, and good teachers at that. Time is too vital, particularly in these days, to nurse along officers and non-commissioned officers who can't get the utmost out of every training hour. That, of course, means that each of us must know how to teach. Yes, Sergeant?
Pardon me, sir. The adjutant says the officers are assembling in the classroom. He wishes to remind the colonel that the class is scheduled to start in 5 minutes.
Thank you, Sergeant. It's time for our school, Captain. I think you'll find the answers to many of your questions about methods of instruction during this class.
I can certainly use a number of those answers, sir.
You know, Captain, not many people realize that an officer spends practically all of his life teaching or going to school and being taught.
Yes, sir.
And that brings us down to the matter of the instructor himself. It's very easy for me to stand here and tell you that the man who is to teach others must have a personality that inspires confidence and stimulates interest. But that's very little help. Instead, you want a concrete procedure, something you can get your teeth into. It is just such a procedure that I intend to present to you today. But first, let me tell you what I shall look for and expect of you gentlemen. I shall expect you to be neat and dignified at all times, and to be not merely interested in your work, but enthusiastic about it. Nothing is quite so contagious as enthusiasm. I shall expect you to be patient with your men and able to understand their viewpoint, their difficulties, and their capabilities and limitations. Every time you appear before your class, I shall expect you to have a complete knowledge of your subject and a plan by which you intend to present that subject. I shall expect you to learn the tricks of the game of teaching, its shortcuts that we have learned from experience, and those methods of instruction that offer the most positive guarantee for conveying the ideas in your mind to the minds of others. We know, for example, there are 5 channels through which knowledge flows to the human brain. These channels are called the physical senses. They are hearing, sight, touch, smell, taste. All methods of instruction are based on transmitting knowledge through one or more of these 5 physical senses. The most effective methods are those that make use of more than one physical sense. A lecture, for example, delivered without illustrations or other instructional aids, makes use of only one of the senses, hearing. It is one of the least effective methods of instruction. A lecture supplemented by such instructional aids as training films, film strips, stereoptic and slides, charts, maps, diagrams, models, and sand tables makes use of 2 of the senses, hearing and sight. It is far better than the bare lecture. First, because it uses 2 of the senses. Second, because we acquire far more knowledge through the eye than we do through the ear. But it is an established fact that we learn to do a thing only by doing it. This process almost always involves the sense of touch. For example, we cannot make a man a rifleman merely by showing him a rifle, explaining how it works, and telling him how to shoot it. The man must actually practice with the rifle.
All right, everyone get down, take up that position.
He must learn how to hold it. He must learn how to aim it. He must learn how to squeeze the trigger. He must become accustomed to the explosion and to the recoil against his shoulder. These things involve sight, hearing, and touch, the 3 main channels we use. Occasionally, we make use of a fourth sense in training. In chemical warfare training, for instance, we rely largely upon our sense of smell to detect the presence of gas. In the training of our cooks and bakers, we make considerable use of the fifth sense, taste. The problem, then, that confronts all people who must instruct or train other people is to determine the best way to impart their knowledge or skill. For example, the teacher in the kindergarten, the professor in the university, the chief clerk in an office, the foreman in the factory, the squad leader, the company commander, the regimental commander. All must find and apply the most effective method of presentation and the most effective method of instruction for each lesson they are required to teach. In no other walk of life, however, are correct instructional methods as important as in the Army. In no other walk of life is failure on the part of the instructor measured in terms of life and death. It is well to remember this, for it is a heavy responsibility. Your task is a practical one. It is to translate the training plans for your unit, the blueprint of the fighting force your commanding officer expects you to build from paper to reality. If you are to accomplish this vital training mission, you must not only understand and appreciate the use of the 5 physical senses as channels of communication between you and your unit, but also the 6 steps that are fundamental in teaching. These are: 1, preparation by the instructor and his assistant. 2, explanation by the instructor. 3, demonstration by the instructor or his assistant. 4, application or practice by the students. 5, examination or test of the proficiency of the students. 6, discussion by the instructor to sum up major or important points and clarify any obscure matters. Of these 6 steps, the most important is preparation. Let us consider some of the serious failures that result from lack of preparation or improper preparation.
Number 5, please.
Major Green speaking.
Major Green, this is Captain Hampson. My training schedule calls for chemical warfare training this morning. I'd like to use the gas chamber from 10 to 11. Is that okay, sir?
Sorry, Captain Hampson. K Company's using the gas chamber during that period. Captain Smart arranged for it 2 weeks ago. I suggest, Captain, that you make such arrangements as this at least a week in advance. This is a vital part of your advanced planning and preparation.
Yes, sir. Well, I'll try to rig up something else, and I promise you I won't make that mistake again.
Here are other mistakes that the inexperienced instructor must guard against. For instance, these men have been seated so that the sun is squarely in their eyes. This is a bad mistake. A careful instructor always considers this in selecting the location for his instruction and in seating his class.
Notice the sergeant's position. He holds the grenade in his right hand. At the command, pull pin, he uses the same twisting motion he used in the standing and kneeling position.
The instructor also considers distracting influences. This instructor didn't. The place he selected for his instruction is too close to heavily traveled roads. The traffic is a distracting influence. Moreover, it makes it difficult for the men to hear. In preparing your instruction, you must select your area carefully to avoid this sort of thing. You must also think of other units working nearby. This instructor didn't. He, too, has fallen down in his planning.
Are there any questions? All right, we'll start the smoke. Okay, Sergeant, let her go. Gas! Forward!
Who's responsible for this smoke?
This time, it looks as if the young man is going to be corrected. Here is a group of men being taught the functioning of the M1 rifle. The spot for this instruction has been well chosen. The men are in the shade. The sun is not in their eyes. There are no distracting influences. But let's listen to the instructor for a moment. The same young lieutenant we just saw.
The operating lug merely sliding in the straight section of the recess in the operating rod. The cam surface of this recess then comes in contact with the operating lug and cams it up, rotating the bolt counterclockwise and disengaging the locking lugs on the...
This officer is completely unprepared. He is wasting the time of his men. He does not know his subject and he has no plan for teaching it. Therefore, he reads it out of the basic field manual. No group of men will ever learn how an M1 rifle functions by listening to someone read it out of a book. Remember this and follow it. Never read a lesson to your men. Here is another instructor who has overlooked a phase of preparation.
Now that we have learned the types of gases and their effect, the next thing you do is to learn how to recognize these gases by the rotor. This is extremely important. In battle, your life may depend upon the keenness of your nose. So this morning, I want every man here to sniff each of these gases we have studied. This is so important that we will go over this several times during the hour. Sergeant Struther, where is that gas identification set? It has 7 bottles in it containing sample gases.
I don't know, Lieutenant. The company mechanic brought all that stuff over, and he said he bought all he could from the 3rd Battalion.
Well, I guess we'll skip that. It wasn't very important anyway. We will study the canister instead.
Proper preparation involves decision as to equipment needed, early arrangements to assemble that equipment, and personal check to see that the equipment is at the proper place at the proper time. Passing the buck to the supply sergeant or the platoon sergeant may result in such a thing as you have just seen: loss of time, loss of valuable instruction, and personal embarrassment. Incidentally, never make the mistake this officer made. Do not try to contradict a previous statement to cover up your own failure. Never try to bluff your way out. It always fails, and you lose the confidence of your men. So far, we have covered what might be called the physical matters of preparation. Hand in hand with these goes the actual preparation of the subject itself. You may not consider yourself properly prepared until you are master of your subject. This means detailed study or careful review. It does not mean reliance on your memory for something you learned last year or last month. Preparation involves analysis of your subject, a consideration of the time available to you, the size of the group you are to teach, the area assigned to you, and the training aids that are available or that can be improvised. From this analysis, you determine the essential facts to be taught, the best way to teach them, and the instructional aids you intend to use. You are now ready to write out your lesson plan. When this is completed, you should assemble your equipment and rehearse your lesson to make sure that your time estimate is right and also to assure yourself of a smooth, fluent presentation. If you have worked properly, your lesson plan should provide for a brief explanation of what the class is to learn and why they are to learn it.
During this period, we take up sight setting. You must remember this. No matter how good a shot you are, you cannot hit your target unless you know how far away it is and how to set that range on your rifle. The same thing goes for windage. Wind blows your bullet out of its pad. Therefore, we must learn to estimate how much windage is called for and then set that windage properly on our rifles.
It should also provide for a step-by-step demonstration of each phase of the subject. Practice by the students is the next step.
Sergeant, take a look at that windage.
No, it's wrong. It's set 1.5 points left instead of 1.5 points right. Now look here, Ellison. This is as simple as ABCs. To take right windage, you move the rear sight to the right, just like this.
Now I'm going to ask you some questions and see how much you have learned. You're getting ready to fire at 500 yards. You estimate that the wind is blowing 10 miles an hour from 3 o'clock. How much windage do you take? Whitelaw, you answer that one.
Sir, I take 5 clicks right windage, which is 1 1/4 point.
That's right. Everyone set that up, and non-coms check all rifles.
A test, usually oral, to determine proficiency comprises the 4th phase. The last step is a discussion to sum up the important points and clarify any doubtful matters. In a field exercise, this is called a critique instead of a discussion. We shall talk of the critique later. These are the 6 vital steps in teaching. Memorize them. Make them your own. Apply them. Common sense will tell you when one of them is inappropriate and can be omitted. Remember them. Preparation, explanation, demonstration, application, examination, discussion. So far, we have considered the mechanics of teaching and the use of the 5 physical senses as channels of communication. Let us now consider the actual teaching process or methods of instruction. Basic Field Manual 21-5 lists the 5 teaching methods most commonly used for military instruction. These are the lecture, the conference, the demonstration, the group performance method, the coach and pupil method. I mentioned earlier that the lecture or talk was one of the least effective methods of instruction, particularly the talk that does not make use of the various training aids. But since there are many occasions when the talk is essential, we must learn to get the most out of it. The first thing to remember is this: keep the talk short, particularly to soldiers. A properly prepared, vigorously presented 10-minute talk is worth a dozen long harangues. Fix the attention of your men at once and catch their interest. If you are explaining scouting and patrolling, for example, tell them in a few sentences the part it plays in actual battle. An anecdote of the famous Sergeant York or Woodville will add interest and arouse enthusiasm. And then, of course, use the various training aids. Let me mention them again. Training films, film strips, charts, stereoptic and slides, maps, models, sand tables, or any other useful device that you can get or make. Never schedule a lecture immediately after the noon meal if you can help it. It invites sleep, and the invitation is usually accepted. Follow up every talk with some sort of physical activity. Be especially careful to see that your lecture is not preceded or followed by another lecture. Use training aids. Keep your voice alive, your enthusiasm high, your talk short, and you will do a good job. The conference is a directed discussion of the subject. It involves questions and answers both from the instructor and the class.
Removing the misfire. Caution, number 2 does not place his thumbs over the muzzle to stop the round until the base is lifted and the shell starts forward. Why doesn't number 2 put his thumbs over the muzzle until the tube is tipped and the round starts forward? Will you answer that? Stevens.
It might be a hang fire and the round might let go just as number 2 puts his thumbs over the muzzle. Or the piece might be jarred and the round go off. Therefore, he waits until the tube is tipped and the round starts forward.
That's right. Very good.
The major advantage of the conference over the lecture is the question and answer feature, which enables the instructor to determine whether or not the class is following him. Neither the lecture nor the conference is well suited for the instruction of enlisted men. In general, they should be used only for the explanation and discussion phases of instruction. A demonstration is an accurate portrayal of a subject or procedure to be taught. A well-planned, carefully presented demonstration is one of the most effective methods of instruction. A demonstration is always preceded by a thorough explanation of the work to be demonstrated.
Again, I call your attention to the way this platoon is taking full advantage of all cover. Notice how the men disappear after each bound forward. That's because each man has picked out his new position before he moves. Now look over to your right and follow the action of the BAR team that you can see just moving out from behind those 2 trees.
The demonstration itself requires careful preparation and repeated rehearsal until all personnel involved in it are letter perfect in their part. A poor demonstration is worse than none at all because it sets false standards. Care must be taken to see that the demonstration does not move too fast, or the various phases will simply become a confusion of movement to the students. Instructors must remember that they have available to them a large number of ready-made demonstrations. These are the training films. Therefore, in planning your instruction, you should consult the lists of training films which are available in this regiment. Make full use of them. Remember, you do not need the regimental theater to show these films. Our 16-millimeter projector and portable screen can be used just as effectively in a darkened day room or mess hall. Now let us watch 1 or 2 simple demonstrations being used by a platoon leader.
Corporal Jones and Private Smith and Brown, bring the rifles and blanket out. Next, we take up the ways to move an injured man if a litter is not at hand, or if we do not have to move him so very far. The first method of doing this is called the rifle blanket seat. Watch them closely. I will explain each step and they will perform it. Fold blanket once from side to side. Lay a rifle across the center of it so that the butt and muzzle project beyond the edges. Fold one end of the blanket upon the other end and lay a second rifle upon the new center as before. The free end of the blanket is folded upon the end containing the first rifle so that it projects about 2 inches beyond the first rifle. The litter is then raised from the ground with the trigger guards up. All right, Corporal, take a seat. Brown, you and Smith give the corporal a ride around the front of the platoon so the men can get a close-up.
Let us observe another simple but effective demonstration. Here an instructor is showing a group of young soldiers, a highly trained squad going through its paces in close order. He does this to show them what a well-trained squad looks like, to set a standard for them, and to arouse their admiration.
Now, you men have had the steps, the facings, and the manual. This morning, we're going to take up squad drill. But first, I want you to see what a well-trained squad looks like. After this show, I'm going to slow them down and have them go through each movement in slow motion. Afterwards, we'll try to put on a better show than theirs. Okay, Sergeant?
shoulder, halt. Forward, halt. Left flank, halt. Right flank, halt. To the rear, halt. Left flank, halt. To the rear, halt. Squad, hold. Order, hold. This right, head. Ready, hut. Section, hold. Point, hold. Right shoulder, hold. Order, hold. Red, head. Squad, big, hut.
All right, Sergeant.
Red, head.
Very good, man. Well, that's the way you're going to drill when we get through. Now we'll break this down slowly. First,
Demonstrations may also be used effectively with the examination step in teaching. For example, we will see a platoon leader using a demonstration to test the knowledge of his platoon in handling a victim of snake bite. This officer has injected a little humor in the demonstration. A laugh is good stuff, but too many laughs will obscure the instruction.
Yesterday, we completed our instruction in first aid. During the next hour, you're going to see 4 different demonstrations of men applying first aid. You are to watch them closely and write down any errors you may see. Is there any man here who doesn't understand what he's to do? All right, Sergeant, pass out pencils and pads. Oh, one final word. Remember that the man who is injured may make mistakes as well as the man who's helping him. So keep your eyes open. All right. All right.
A snake bit me. Look, right here.
Say, that's bad. What kind of a snake was it?
A rattler. 20 feet long.
Hey, let's fix the guy up. Fix it?
Hey, what are you guys gonna do? Huh? What are you gonna do?
Take it easy, soldier. We're gonna save your life.
Oh. Ow. Ow. What are you doing now, huh? What are you doing?
He's stopping the bleeding.
Oh. Ow! What's the handkerchief for?
I'm gonna cover up the wound. Here you are. Now, come on, we'll walk back to the barracks with you. Help you into bed. Fix you.
Pass your pads to Sergeant Blake. Here are the major errors you should have picked up. 1, violent action should be avoided after snake bite. The patient we saw was running and out of breath. 2, the knife should have been sterilized. A match would have done the job. 3, the tourniquet was placed below the wound. It should have been placed between the wound and the heart. 4, the wound should not have been bandaged. The flow of blood should be aided, not impeded. 5, one patient while the other went for the ambulance. In any event, the patient should not be returned to barracks, but to the hospital. Any questions? All right, Brown.
Lieutenant, shouldn't they have made the man lie down right away and tried...